We are going to start this deep dive in, well, maybe a strange place, but I guarantee it's deeply familiar to you. Picture this moment. The alarm goes off, and it doesn't go off at 6 a.m.
No, absolutely not.
No.
6 is too generous, too yielding. It goes off precisely at 5:47 a.m.
5.47. Why 5.47? That arbitrary precision is, I think, kind of the core of our analysis today.
It really is.
It's not 6.0 because, well, that would be weak, wouldn't it? A surrender to sleep.
Right.
And it's not 5.45 because that's too round, too easy, too lacy somehow.
Yeah, it lacks rigor.
That extra 2 minutes of self-imposed discipline, that 5.47, it's like this tiny psychological tax we pay to convince ourselves we are winning. Right from the start.
It is the precision of self-punishment, enacted before the sun even rises. You wake up not because your body is rested, but because you're now operating under this bizarre, non-negotiable set of metrics delivered by the internalized critic.
And what's the first instruction?
Hydrate. You must drink your specific blend lemon water, maybe some sea salt, within like 37 seconds of opening your eyes.
37 seconds.
Because that is the exact, apparently scientifically validated window for optimizing your cortisol peak or something.
And this ritual, it's treated with this like monastic seriousness, despite, let's be honest, its inherent absurdity.
Completely.
And before you even make it to the kitchen, you probably grab your phone, you check the optimized lives of others, you see the influencer in their matching linen set, sipping chlorophyll water, calling it morning alignment.
Or the person with the perfect gut biome captioning, discipline is greater than motivation. Day 847.
Right. And what is your immediate, visceral, psychological response? Sitting there in bed at 5.48.
Guilt. Yeah.
Guilt. Exactly. But it's not the guilt our grandparents know, is it? It's not like traditional moral guilt. You didn't skip mass. You didn't commit a recognized sin.
Yeah.
Yet there is this pervasive, low-level shame that just settles in the pit of your stomach before you even stand up.
That twinge.
Well, the sources we're looking at call it secular, algorithmically optimized guilt. The shame isn't for some failing of the soul. The shame is for inefficiency.
Inefficiency, that's it. We are no longer failing God, we are failing the algorithm.
Pretty much.
I think that phrase, algorithmically optimized guilt, is a perfect starting point. The shame is knowing you didn't optimize your circadian rhythm perfectly. It's the guilt over scrolling for 7 minutes instead of meditating.
Or, the ultimate failure. Choosing simple white toast.
God forbid.
Overactivated buckwheat soaked overnight in moon-charged spring water. What you're guilty of is a suboptimal choice.
And that guilt, it just drives us into this endless cycle.
Yeah.
So the mission for this deep dive today is clear, I think. We are unpacking why this relentless, metrics-driven pursuit of wellness, which promises peace and optimization, often makes us feel demonstrably worse, more anxious.
And we're asking what Freud might have called this daily, quiet performance of self-recrimination. We're basically going to try and psychoanalyze the self-help movement itself. Okay, so let's unpack this using that foundational framework of psychoanalysis. We are talking about the superego.
Right.
For anyone who might need a quick refresher, the superego is essentially that internalized voice of authority. It's the repository of our moral code, the internalized parent, the critic that judges our actions against what society, or maybe what our internalized image of perfection demands.
And the idea here, the proposal, is that the superego hasn't vanished in our secular modern world. Not at all. It has simply changed its uniform and its venue.
How so?
Well, it's moved out of the pulpit, maybe, and into the Notes app on your phone. The internalized parent is now wearing like $150 athleisure wear.
Okay. So the voice of authority has shifted its command structure, but not its function. It still wants relentless judging control.
Exactly.
But where it once whispered, "Thou shalt not," it now commands. Thou shalt journal, thou shalt stretch, thou shalt manifest, thou shalt track thy macros, thou shalt optimize.
And thou shalt glow. It's a very attractive, very aesthetically pleasing tyrant, isn't it?
It really is. And what's fascinating here is how this rebrand changes the focus of our moral performance.
Yeah, the key insight our sources highlight is that wellness, in its contemporary sort of capitalized form, is rarely about true, simple health or just feeling well. It's morphed into a meticulously curated theater of control.
A theater of control.
Yeah, a daily drama where we perform self-mastery, and the internalized critic, the superego, is the only audience that truly matters in the end.
And we are relentless about this performance. I mean, think about how moralization works now. Why does skipping your gratitude practice on a Tuesday afternoon feel like a legitimate moral failure, even if you had a perfectly productive day otherwise?
Right. Or why does sleeping in on a Saturday, just listening to your body's need for rest, trigger this spiral where you feel you've ruined the whole week, like you've damaged your discipline score or something?
Totally.
It's because the whole wellness regime has been completely moralized. The goal shifted. It went from feeling good to being good.
Being good.
You're striving to be the good citizen of the optimal self-republic. Any deviation from the protocol isn't seen as, a biological necessity or just life happening. It's viewed as a failure of character.
If you're not optimizing, you are weak. If you are struggling, you obviously haven't done the work.
Exactly. And the technology we use, it actively reinforces this whole dynamic. It transforms the internal critic into this external, quantifiable authority.
That's a huge point. The superego used to rely on, vague societal standards? Maybe the disapproving glance of your aunt?
Yeah, or just that internal nagging voice. Now it has objective metrics. Cold, hard data.
This is the crucial shift, isn't it? The algorithm becomes the new priest in a way. Your wearable tracker, whether it's a smart ring or a watch, becomes your confessional box and your judgment seat.
Absolutely. And that quiet panic sets in when you look down and see a yellow recovery score, or your HRV dips below whatever optimal is supposed to be.
The device is speaking on behalf of the superego now. It's delivering concrete, quantified failure messages.
And the algorithm never says, hey, you had a messy human day, maybe just rest.
No way. It says, you didn't hit 10,000 steps, or your deep sleep was compromised by 12 minutes, or, my favorite, you indulged in a non-nourishing social interaction last night.
Huh. Right. And the mind immediately translates those objective facts into absolute failure. You failed. Again, you were inefficient.
And the sources note that this form of shame is, kind of insidious because it's so clean, it's precise, it's highly aesthetic.
It's certainly more expensive than old-fashioned sin. Requires continuous investment in tools and protocols just to appease this unappeasable internalized critic.
The moment you buy the device, the superego gets its own objective dashboard to monitor your worthiness 24/7.
And that relentless judgment just keeps the whole anxiety machine fueled and running.
Okay, let's pivot a bit to the language we use, the language within this optimization culture. Because the words themselves, I think, are incredibly revealing about the underlying psychological drive. When you really listen to the terminology of modern wellness, it's intensely ascetic, almost monastic, right? We restrict, we abstain, we cleanse.
Very puritanical in a way.
But it's overlaid with this highly aggressive, almost militaristic vocabulary.
Oh yeah. Think about the words we hear all the time. Warrior pose, cleanse, reset, discipline, commitment, and the defining one, the sort of managerial term, non-negotiables.
Non-negotiables. That doesn't sound like self-care, does it? It sounds like a rigid treaty agreement designed to prevent any internal dissent.
Exactly. It's the language of battle, of conquest.
This is the language of conquest and total control, not really healing or gentle integration. The source material even suggests we aren't simply soothing or regulating the nervous system, we are actively trying to colonize it.
Colonize it. Wow. Yeah, we're managing the body like it's this difficult, slightly rebellious employee who keeps asking for breaks or complaining.
Exactly. The core desire seems to be total mastery, to eliminate chaos, inefficiency, and anything that reminds us that we are still subject to our biology, to sickness, and eventually to death.
So, if that's the goal, total mastery, what is this mastery actually attempting to conquer? We have to connect this ritualistic obsession back to the ego, right? Which is desperately trying to manage some profound underlying anxiety.
Precisely. The heavy psychological lifting required to manage those deep-seated anxieties, like, say, the fear of being unlovable unless we are constantly performing at peak capacity, or the terror of just being irrelevant.
That's too much. It's overwhelming for the ego to deal with directly.
So the ego cleverly outsources that anxiety. It farms it out to a series of achievable, trackable tasks. We turn this vague, existential dread into measurable protocols we can follow.
Okay. So if I feel desperately unloved, I don't confront that feeling head on. That's too messy, too scary.
Right. Instead, I get obsessed with doing a 7-day cleanse. Perfectly.
The desire for purity then manifests not as true holistic health, but as craving something like celery juice.
Which becomes this symbol.
Yeah, it's a ritualistic scrubbing.
Yeah.
An attempt to clean oneself of desire, of chaos, of the messy ebid, really.
Purification against the messy internal world. And this outsourcing, it extends even to our most human states, doesn't it? Even concepts like mindfulness and presence get transformed into tasks.
Totally. You don't simply sit and be. No. You download the app, you set the reminder, you track your mindful minutes.
And then you rate your inner peace on a scale of 1 to 10 afterwards.
Presence itself becomes a key performance indicator, a KPI, just another box to check off.
We are trying desperately to quantify the unquantifiable. If I can prove with data that I got my 30 mindful minutes in, then I have been good for the day.
And the anxiety about my worth, my fundamental okayness, temporarily retreats, just for a bit.
This brings us to that fundamental psychoanalytic shift in how we relate to the physical self, the body. It's no longer viewed primarily as a vessel of desire, is it? That primary Freudian site of sexuality, raw impulses, the id's demands.
No. The body is neither a temple nor simply a vessel. It is a dashboard.
Or a project to be endlessly optimized and managed.
Exactly. We don't just experience a simple feeling like hunger anymore. We listen to our satiety cues.
We don't just feel tired, we honor our adrenals or schedule recovery. It's all translated through this detached language of management and tuning. Never just simple acceptance of the state.
And this managerial perspective, it has a really devastating consequence when the body inevitably falters. Because it will.
Right. When you get sick, when you gain weight, when you feel unavoidable pain, it is no longer just bad luck or natural decay or part of being human.
No, it's framed as personal, moral failure. If you are suffering, it must be because you broke the protocol somehow. You slipped up.
The narrative instantly becomes, you didn't manage your stress well enough, or you didn't eat clean enough to protect your gut barrier.
The body itself is now guilty of its own suffering. And the superego, it has a perfect, airtight justification for its continuous judgment. Forever.
This detailed psychoanalytic view of our daily practices, it brings us right to the core of this deep dive, I think. Our source material argues pretty forcefully that what we commonly call self-care often functions as a kind of Trojan horse.
How so? A Trojan horse for what?
Well, the rituals we adopt, the expensive supplements, the early morning journaling, the extreme dietary rules, they're presented as liberation, but they might actually be sophisticated defense mechanisms, just dressed up in nice linen loungewear and marketed effectively.
Okay, defense mechanisms, like the classic Freudian ones, repression, projection.
Exactly those. And the foundational truth here, according to this view, is what we're using these routines to avoid.
As the sources point out,
Yeah.
you are not simply who you say you are. You are fundamentally defined by who you avoid being.
So the fierce, rigid commitment to a routine isn't necessarily a path to peace.
It could be a meticulously constructed barricade, built against the repressed self, the chaotic self that we're terrified of actually meeting.
Okay, let's break down these mechanisms then, see how they play out in the wellness sphere. Starting with mechanism 1, repression. The basic idea, just to remind everyone, is the ego pushing unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or desires out of conscious awareness because they're too threatening.
Right, and we see this perhaps most clearly in the ubiquitous digital detox.
The detox, always virtuous.
Always. We frame this as self-respect, reclaiming our attention, honoring our boundaries, all good things on the surface.
What?
But beneath that virtuous facade, the detox can often be an act of profound repression. We aren't just unplugging to recharge our phones or our brains. We might be unplugging because when the screen goes dark, when the endless stream of external distraction finally ceases.
The noise of our own thoughts becomes unbearable.
Exactly. The noise of the id, the primal, messy, pleasure-seeking part of the psyche, the part that wants what it wants right now.
What's the id screaming in that silence?
I want cake. I hate my job. I want messy, spontaneous sex. I want to rage, things that don't fit the optimized plan.
And that raw, messy demand cannot be allowed into the carefully curated, optimized life. It's too disruptive.
So we repress it by scheduling a highly virtuous act of abstinence, the detox. You make the detox virtuous. You make it about reclaiming attention, precisely to avoid hearing those raw, chaotic demands of the unconscious. Demands you fear would dismantle your carefully constructed life if you actually listened.
Wow. Okay. Next, let's move to mechanism 2, projection. This is where we take our own unacceptable or feared internal traits, things we don't like about ourselves, and pin them onto an external person or group.
Basically, instead of dealing with the uncomfortable truth about ourselves, it's just easier to see that flaw glaringly in someone else.
And in the modern wellness landscape, This happens a lot.
Constantly. We've developed an entire spiritually sanctioned vocabulary specifically for projection. It's quite sophisticated.
Give me an example.
Okay, you don't say, I am completely overwhelmed and feel like disappearing because I constantly overcommit myself and can't say no.
I mean, what do you say instead?
You say, my energy is being depleted and drained by toxic people.
See? You take your own internal chaos, your own boundary issues, and you project it outward onto others. They become the problem.
Precisely. Or you don't admit, I'm desperately jealous of her freedom, her ability to just choose chaos sometimes.
Instead, you say,
she has absolutely no boundaries. No wonder her life is so disorganized and chaotic. You pathologize her freedom.
wellness becomes projection's favorite playground because the language allows us to frame personal dislike or envy or judgment as simply protecting our fragile energy field.
Exactly. It allows us to be judgmental while calling it discernment.
Yeah.
If someone's mere presence upsets you, it's far easier to label them as toxic and performatively cut them out of your life.
Then to actually ask yourself, why is their freedom or their messiness triggering my own internalized superego, my own demands for rigid control?
That's the hard question we avoid by projecting.
Deeply unsettling, as you said. Okay, now let's look at mechanism 3, sublimation. This is where an impulse that society deems unacceptable, maybe aggression, maybe lust, maybe deep-seated narcissism, gets redirected into something productive, something socially accepted, or even lauded as higher or creative.
Right. And this is truly where we see the monetization of neurosis in the wellness world. It's rampant.
Monetization of neurosis? How does that work?
We'll take a deep, gnawing craving for attention and validation, for example. That raw need isn't expressed directly, like begging for validation. That's unseemly.
So what happens instead?
That raw desire gets sublimated. It turns into starting a highly professional, aesthetically pleasing, self-love brand or podcast. Positioning the self not as needy, but as the master healer, the guru dispensing wisdom.
Okay, I see. Or maybe a profound, desperate need for control doesn't lead to overtly micromanaging your spouse or your team at work.
Right, that causes conflict. Instead, that need for control is channeled, sublimated, into designing an incredibly complex, highly aesthetic, multi-tiered 90-day life reset protocol.
That you then sell to the world, promising them control over their lives.
Exactly. And the outcome here is critical. You didn't actually heal the underlying aggression or the narcissism or the deep-seated control issues. You simply gave them a perfectly lit, Instagram-friendly platform.
You took raw, messy, maybe even forbidden impulses.
And gave them a yoga mat, a Squarespace website, and a 5-figure business plan. And you called it spiritual entrepreneurship.
And the world often rewards you for what is fundamentally a very well-managed, highly productive defense mechanism.
It's a harsh way to put it, but yeah. You essentially monetize the defense mechanism.
Let's shift now to mechanism 4, displacement. This is when we take a feeling, an emotion that's really meant for one target, maybe a threatening one, and we misdirect it toward a safer, less threatening substitute.
The classic example is being furious at your boss, but you can't yell at them, right? So you go home and yell at your partner or kick the dog or just scream into a pillow.
Okay. How does this play out in wellness where the stakes feel more existential?
Well, think about the big fears. We are terrified on some level of the inescapable reality of death, decay, loss. That profound terror is just too big, too overwhelming for most of us to face directly.
So we displace it. Onto what?
Onto something we feel we can control. We displace that existential dread onto an obsession with, say, our gut health.
Gut health, how does that connect?
The terror mortality of invasion of breakdown gets displaced onto this minute obsession with probiotics, fermented foods, eliminating inflammatory things. We try to sanitize and perfect our internal biome, attempting to build this impermeable barrier against all outside threats.
Including aging and death itself. It becomes a proxy war against mortality fought in the microbiome.
Precisely. Or grief over lost youth gets displaced onto obsessive anti-aging protocols and expensive serums. Loneliness, which requires the really vulnerable act of reaching out and admitting need.
That gets displaced onto what?
Onto cleansing the social circle, removing anyone who doesn't perfectly align. It's easier to purify your circle than to admit you're lonely and need connection.
We turn profound existential dread and simple human longing into a rigid, highly detailed protocol.
Exactly. You don't say, God, I just really need a hug. I just want to be held. That's too vulnerable.
Instead, you say,
I need to do some yin yoga nidra this evening to regulate my nervous system.
Wow, you've literally turned a basic human yearning for connection into a biohacking protocol, avoiding the raw, vulnerable act of just asking for what you need.
That is displacement in action right there in the yoga studio.
Okay, one more.
Yeah.
You mentioned reaction formation, especially around the libido. Can you expand on that? Libido meaning?
Libido in the broader Freudian sense, not just sexual energy, but the raw life force, the pleasure principle, our simple, messy, sometimes inconvenient desires.
And this libido, this life force, is under siege in modern optimization culture.
Absolutely. We are basically told we're not allowed to want anything messy, anything simple, anything unoptimized. Cake, spontaneous rest without justification, screaming in frustration, simple indulgence. It's all pathologized or seen as unproductive.
So reaction formation is?
It's behaving in the exact opposite way of your true, deep desire. You do this to convince yourself, and crucially to convince your superego, that the forbidden desire doesn't actually exist within you.
Like how?
You might fast excessively, punishingly, because deep down you are terrified of your true desire to binge, to let go.
Or you commit with fierce intensity to rigorous, painful routines.
Because you are terrified of quitting, of resting, of falling apart, of admitting it's too much. You are performing the absolute opposite of your inherent messiness or exhaustion to maintain the carefully constructed illusion of control and virtue.
So in essence, through all these complex psychological maneuvers, we are fighting this profound war with ourselves.
Yeah. And somehow we've convinced ourselves that this exhausting internal conflict is actually self-love.
This whole analysis, it brings us right back full circle to that paradox we started with. Why does attempting to do wellness perfectly actually seem to make so many of us feel more anxious, more irritable, more judgmental of ourselves and others? If this optimization culture is supposed to be about mastery and peace, why is the predominant feeling always one of striving, never arriving?
Because, from this perspective, the wellness culture, at least in its current mainstream form, isn't actually designed to heal you or bring you peace. It is structurally designed to keep you striving.
Keep you on the hook.
Exactly. It's not a destination you reach. It is a treadmill disguised as a sanctuary. The moment you step off, the moment you relax, the vigilance.
The anxiety you were running from, the superego's judgment, it catches right back up immediately.
This connects directly to what Freud called the repetition compulsion.
Can you remind us what that is?
Sure. It's the unconscious drive we all have to some extent to repeat a pattern of suffering or distress, even when it obviously causes pain.
Why would we do that?
Because that familiar pattern, even if painful, offers the illusion of mastery or control. We keep thinking, if I just execute the routine perfectly this time, if I just follow the protocol without deviation, then I will finally achieve that promised safety or worthiness or peace.
But the striving itself, the perfectionism required by the protocol, is the trap. It generates its own anxiety.
Precisely. And that relentless striving, that constant need to control and perfect, it connects to an even darker psychoanalytic concept, thanatos, the death drive.
Wait, hold on. The death drive. How does the drive to be perfectly healthy, to optimize vitality, connect to a drive towards non-existence? That sounds completely contradictory. Can you elaborate on that bridge?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive at first glance, absolutely.
Yeah.
But think about it this way. Modern optimization culture, functional medicine extremes, radical anti-aging protocols.
Yeah.
What are they fundamentally trying to do?
Prevent aging, prevent disease,
Yeah.
extend life?
But how? By trying to outrun decay, outrun aging, outrun vulnerability, ultimately trying to outrun death itself by following the right protocol, taking the right supplements, eliminating every wrong food or toxin. We are attempting to impose total rational control over our own mortality. So from this perspective, it's less about truly wanting to live more vibrantly in the messy reality of life, and more about desperately wanting to suffer less, wanting to be less vulnerable to the inevitable breakdowns of the body and life.
And since suffering, vulnerability, decay, messiness, these are intrinsic parts of the human experience.
Exactly. The more we try to eliminate life's essential messiness, sugar, stress, negative emotions, toxic energy, aging itself, the more we are, in a way, attempting to eliminate the unpredictable, uncontrollable reality of life itself, seeking a kind of sterile, predictable stillness.
Which is disturbingly close to the stillness of non-existence that Thanatos supposedly drives towards.
Wow.
Okay.
And this whole effort clashes directly with the psychoanalytic view of symptoms, too.
How so?
Well, in therapy, a symptom, whether it's anxiety or restlessness or physical pain, is seen as a message. It's a communication from the unconscious. It's usually a kind of compromise, a coded signal emerging from the conflict between a forbidden desire and the superego's censorship.
But modern wellness, it seems to want to silence the symptom immediately.
It censors the message instantly by translating pain directly into protocol. You are not allowed to simply say, I'm tired, and just rest. Explore why you're tired. No.
That message gets immediately censored and translated into
Medicalized management.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to support my adrenals. Or you're not allowed to simply acknowledge rage or deep frustration. It gets rebranded as, I'm clearing stagnant energy.
We are systematically relabeling our exhaustion, our loneliness, our anger, ensuring that the raw, unconscious message never penetrates the polished surface of the optimized self.
We focus intensely on the protocol, fixing the adrenals, clearing the energy, precisely to avoid the potentially more painful or disruptive underlying truth.
The truth, babe.
Maybe the truth is, I am completely burned out by this lifestyle, or I am furious at my situation, or I desperately need to quit this job, this relationship, this entire way of being. We manage the symptom to avoid the cure, if the cure requires radical change.
And this leads us to what you called the unspoken contract, the neurotic bargain that we seem to sign with Wellness Inc. What's the deal we unconsciously make?
The unspoken contract, the bargain, it was something like this. Okay, I will trade my spontaneity for safety. I will trade my raw desire for discipline. I will trade my chaos for control. I will trade my messy, unpredictable humanity for perpetual optimization.
And in return, what do we get?
In return, I will finally be safe. I will be okay. I will be loved. I will be worthy.
But this bargain, it's fundamentally flawed, isn't it? Because the belief system supporting it is entirely conditional.
Precisely. That's the painful truth that no wellness guru is likely to post on Instagram. No amount of journaling or fasting or green juice or optimized routines will ever make you feel truly worthy if, deep down, you fundamentally believe that worthiness must be earned through rigid, continuous, perfect performance.
Because in the superego's world, love and safety are always conditional. They depend entirely on your adherence to the optimized plan. One slip up and you're out.
Exactly. The anxiety never really goes away because the threat of failure is constant.
So ultimately, this whole analysis concludes that the relentless perfectionist wellness routine, it isn't actually a cure for our anxiety.
No, it is perhaps its most elaborate, most beautiful, and most expensive symptom. It's this highly visible, often Instagrammable suit of armor.
Armor worn to protect us against what?
Against the terrifying, glorious, messy, uncontrollable truth.
Which is?
The truth that, fundamentally, we do not need to be fixed. We just need to be felt, accepted as we are.
Wow, okay. We have spent this deep dive mapping out this incredibly intricate psychological cage we seem to have built for ourselves. A cage where the superego, maybe wearing yoga pants, keeps that anxiety treadmill running 24/7 under the guise of self-improvement. This leads us, I think, to the final and maybe truly radical question we want to pose to you, the listener, listening to this right now. What if the single most radical act of self-care available to you today is simply to stop optimizing yourself? Just for a bit, maybe for a day.
It demands an immediate and quite profound shift in perspective, doesn't it? Health isn't really a state you achieve through a checklist or a perfect protocol. Maybe it's more like a relationship.
A relationship?
Yeah, a relationship you have to patiently foster with your own inevitable imperfection, with your vulnerability. Your body doesn't necessarily need more fixing. Maybe it just needs befriending, listening to, rather than managing.
The cultural obsession is always with letting go, isn't it? Letting go of trauma, letting go of negative energy, letting go of control.
Right, control is the big one.
But the profound Freudian idea, the counterintuitive one maybe, is sometimes less about letting go and more about letting come.
Letting come.
Yeah, allowing the repressed stuff, the messy stuff, the ugly, inconvenient truth of the idea to just surface, to breathe for a second without immediate censorship or translation into a wellness protocol.
And that is the terrifying moment of surrender, isn't it? Because the immediate fear is, what happens if I stop the routine? What happens if I sleep past 5.47? What if I eat the toast?
What if I am not enough, not safe, not loved? If I am not constantly performing this optimization?
Then,
Yeah.
maybe you meet yourself.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, without the armor, without the filters.
The optimized, hydrated, aligned, high-performance persona just dissolves
Yeah.
for a moment, and you are forced to reckon with the unedited person underneath.
And that person staring back, they're not a project. They're not a project manager overseeing the self, not a machine to be tuned, certainly not a brand to be curated.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought, something for you to just chew on. The ego, your conscious self, is fundamentally exhausted from pretending to be the superego's perfect, optimized, always-on employee.
So maybe the most honest, perhaps even the most healing thing you can do today is skip the scheduled meditation just
Yeah.
for today. Stare at the ceiling for 5 minutes instead.
And realize that the person staring back, the one doing the staring, is just you.
Yeah.
Messy, tired, maybe a bit confused, gloriously imperfectly human.
And that reality, without any condition, without any further optimization,
Yeah.
is more than enough.